Good afternoon. The time is now 3:30 p.m., and I call the January 26, 2023 Code Enforcement meeting to order. Thank you to everyone in the room and everyone online that's joining us. Please note for the record that all members of the Code Enforcement are present, with the exception of Member Rand, Member Murphy, and Member McDonald. If everyone in chambers will please silence your phones. Sorry about that. You weren't on my list earlier. Please silence your phones and all mobile devices so that we won't have any interruptions. For the first business of order, we're going to do the election of the chairman and vice chairman. Okay. Nomination?
I think I'd know better than that. I nominate Robin McDonald.
Okay.
Yeah, McDonald.
Okay.
Chair.
Chairman, okay.
I second that motion.
Okay. And all in favor say aye.
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 Okay. And the next nomination will be for vice chairman?
I'd like to nominate Roger Barrow.
Okay.
I second that.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 All right, I'll turn the meeting over to Chairman McDonald.
Thank you. So just read this script here. It's my first time, so excuse me if I flounder at it. But the board operates under the authority granted by the state of Georgia under Title 36, Chapter 74 of the Code of Georgia, and through the City of Alpharetta's Code Enforcement Ordinance. Having called the meeting to order and completed the roll call, we are now ready to approve the minutes of our last meeting. Hopefully, each member has had a chance to look over the minutes in the packet they received. I'll need a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved.
Are there any corrections or changes that need to be made? There being none.
Madam Chairman, we need a second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, great. So we have a motion to approve and a second, and now we'll vote.
Aye.
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 Okay. The purpose of the Code Enforcement Board of the City of Alpharetta is to judicially consider the evidence presented by both the city and the respondents in the cases that come before a board. The Code Enforcement Board does not enact the laws of the city, but rather determines if the laws have been applied fairly and imposed properly in the matters before us. If this board finds that the ordinances and codes of the City of Alpharetta have been applied properly in the cases, the board may also then impose deadlines for the respondent's compliance and can institute penalties for noncompliance. The city will present its first case. After the city presents its evidence and testimony, the board may then follow with questions for the city. Then the respondents will present their side of the case, and the board may also question the respondents. Upon the completion of the board's questioning, the board will then consider evidence and will present a finding of fact. If we find the respondent guilty, the board may then choose to issue orders requiring the respondent's compliance and impose appropriate penalties in the event of noncompliance. I caution the respondents to make good use of the time that they have at the podium. Once the board begins deliberations, there can be no more presentation of evidence. I ask that everybody remember two things. The first one is, when addressing the board, please speak at the podium and speak directly into the microphone. And secondly, I ask that you address all of your comments to me, the chairperson. I'll route them and handle them in the appropriate manner. These proceedings are part of public record, and if you are going to make testimony before this board, you will need to come forward and be sworn. I'll ask the city attorney to swear those individuals in. So, the first item that we have on our agenda has been postponed, the 490 Karen Drive. So we'll go on to item B, which is CE 220717, 2005 Hembry Road tree violations. Okay.
If either one of you were going to speak on the case, the attorney will swear you in.
Okay. Before we, okay.
Who's going to go first, or should we? Okay. You raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth here today? Okay. And then you're also going to speak, okay? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth here today? Okay. Then will anyone else planning on speaking? We can go ahead and. Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth here today? And do you also swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth here today? Okay.
Okay, I guess we can have our first presentation by our code enforcement.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Appreciate y'all being here today. I'm Frank Jackson, Officer Jackson, City of Alpharetta. I'm here to present to you today the case CE 220903 and CE 220717. The first case number is David's case, and then it came to me as a case as well. So there are actually two case numbers assigned to this. The purpose of my presentation today is to provide you with a timeline of events, and then David will take over from that point of view and describe to you the codes that were violated, as well as photos that are part of the case. This is for Hembry Road Commercial Properties, LLC, the Shell gas station on 2005 Hembry Road. On September 15th, 2022, David Shostak, city arborist, issued a letter of notice detailing the tree ordinance violation at 2005 Hembry Road. The letter was mailed to Mr. Mike Pangiwani, place of business. The letter listed the violations and measures needed to comply with within 2 weeks of the letter's date of September 15th, 2022. 2 calls were made to David during that time, and no further action was taken by the property owner. So there were a couple of discussions made from the property owner to David, but then after that, there was nothing followed up by the property owner. On December 22nd, Code Enforcement issued a notice of violation to Minus Pangiwani, the owner. The notice of violation detailed tree violations and failure to comply with the September 15th letter of violations. The notice of violation listed a date of January 5th, 2022 for corrections to be completed. During this period, Mr. Pangiwani phoned and indicated that he had not had anything to do with the cutting or trimming of trees or plants. Code Enforcement advised him at that time that he is responsible for the trees and plants at the business location. On January 18th, 2023, a summons to appear to the Code Enforcement Board was issued. The summons was scanned, emailed, and printed and mailed certified return receipt. Today we received the return receipt. At this time, I'll introduce David to provide you with photos of the property and the detailed codes in violation.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Board. Before I get started, I just want to make one clarification on the date. So on this slide where it says January 5th, 2022, it should be January 5th, 2023. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is go over the code sections. You guys received the code, but here I just wanted to highlight the sections that pertain to this case. Unfortunately, they are a little bit blurry. So let me see if I can grab out of here the code section so I can actually read it to you. Okay, so yeah, the first highlighted section is in the general statement of the code. Can you hear me okay, or do I need to get closer? Okay. It says, all persons shall make reasonable efforts to protect and retain certain existing self-supporting trees as defined herein. Each person shall be responsible for the normal care of trees located on its premises. That's the first highlighted area. The second highlighted area is willful injury or disfigurement of any tree growing within the city shall be a violation of this ordinance. And then the next is no person shall, and that relates to item 8, which is remove or prune a tree on commercial property during non-development activity unless they follow ISA industry standard protocols for pruning or have a written approval from the director. The next highlighted section is part of the definition section, and it is actually the definition in the code for pruning. That definition is to cut away dead, overgrown, or undesirable branches or stems, pruning of trees to be done in compliance with standard arboricultural practices as outlined in ANSI A300 and shall maintain the tree's natural form and structure. And then we include in here the removal or removal of trees because certain actions can be considered a removal even if the tree is not completely removed. So this is removal of trees through an act of cutting down a tree or any act which causes a tree to die within 2 years after commission of the act or impede the ability of the tree to sustain itself, including but not limited to damage inflicted upon the root system, trunk, or canopy as a result of. And then the highlighted section that pertains to that is 6, pruning judged to be excessive by the director or not in accordance with the standards set forth by the International Society of Arboriculture. So those are the code sections that pertain to this violation. So now I'm going to move forward and show you some photos, before and after kind of photos. So this photo is a street view photo from April 2022. In this photo, you can see on the right side some magnolias. The one in the center near the sign for the store is also another magnolia. And the trees on the left by the construction sign, those are holly trees. In addition, there are various crepe myrtles throughout the site. This is a site photo taken yesterday that show the magnolias pruned up about halfway. That's about 50% of the tree removed. ANSI standards say you should not remove more than 25% of the live canopy. And in addition, the natural form and structure of a magnolia is to be full to the ground. Here's a street view from April 2022 of those same magnolias. This is from the opposite side, but those are the same 2 trees. These are a photo from yesterday of the 3 hollies. As you can see, they are about 3 feet tall max at this point. This is the view of those same trees from March of 2022. So you can see that these are probably somewhere around 18 feet tall, or approximately. This is an image from yesterday of another magnolia that you saw in that first image near the sign. This one also is about 2 feet tall. And in front of that and to the left of it, you can see some of the crepe myrtles that were topped. That is also, topping crepe myrtles is also something that is against our code because our code doesn't specifically state any trees can be topped in certain ways. All trees need to be treated similarly. And these are just some other additional photos of the site showing other top trees. Again, this was from yesterday, and I thought there was one more picture. I guess not. So I ask now if anybody has any questions.
So when you went to speak to at the point in time you had a conversation with the owner or operator, what was their response to the tree removal, or
So-
it's pruning, over pruning.
When I contacted the store, I ended up speaking with someone who worked there, so then I got information and we sent the violation. The first phone call I had, I believe, was from the owner's wife because the owner was out of town. And she was asking me what I needed, and I explained that everything was listed in the letter, and they needed to get an ISA certified arborist to assess the damages and let me know which trees needed to be removed and which trees needed to be, could be saved and treated or properly pruned in a corrective action. Then the next call I received was from some contractor that was just kind of explaining what happened and that they didn't do anything and they don't understand why they're getting this. And I asked if that person was an ISA certified arborist, and they said no. And I said, well, that's what we need to start moving forward so we can resolve this issue. That's the only conversations I had.
Any other questions? Questions from the board for the staff? So what would, so the next step, if, let's say, they didn't come to the board, was to hire a certified arborist to do a report and to figure out what could be saved and/or what was totally removed. And then, let's say if you got that report, what would be the next step?
Okay, if I had received that report, then we would have most likely had a meeting. I would have taken the violation and I said, okay, what we need now is for your property to come up to code. And we would have gone through what trees needed to be planted or removed. Based on what was considered removed, we would have come up with a number of inches that has to be replaced. Based on the code, if it's a non-specimen tree, it needs to be replaced with the same number of inches as removed. So they would have come up with that number, but we would have ultimately negotiated a settlement that said this is what needs to be planted to meet minimum code requirements and replace what was removed. And we would have discussed whether or not there would have been a fine and what that value would have been. Right now, the fine is listed as the maximum that the code allows in the violation notice that you guys have received a copy of.
Were any of those specimen trees that were?
I don't believe any of them were specimen trees. The only ones that may have been is if it's a smaller variety magnolia, it is considered a specimen at 8 inches, and I haven't had any opportunity to measure any of the trees.
I ask a question? I'm trying to understand what all you are looking to have done. What's left of those magnolias we're going to leave there, or we're going to try to replace them, or what are you suggesting?
So, based on the code, the magnolia that was cut all the way to the ground and the hollies that were cut all the way to the ground are considered removed. Those will never recover and become a tree like they were. So those would need to be replaced. Technically, the magnolias that were limbed all the way up will not regain their form. So, but that is something that could have been part of the conversation. We haven't made a decision yet because we don't have all the data in front of us. And part of that data would be the report from the ISA certified arborist stating what they think can be done. And then I take that information and I compare it to what I think can be done, and we have a conversation. Yeah. And then just in addition, one more thing is all of the crepe myrtles that have been topped over the years, they've been topped so badly and so low to the ground that they probably also would need to be replaced.
Yeah, I would think probably the cold weather won't have helped them either.
Probably
No.
not, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of this in two ways. You know, it sounds like you need a plan and then sort of a negotiation around like what needs to be replanted to sort of make it whole. And then there's the component potentially of the fine for having done those actions already. So
Correct.
I was trying to understand because there's some discretion, I guess, the board has in terms of assessing the fine, but you had also noted something about a fine on the notice of violation. Can you say a little bit about that, just as we think of those in two separate ways? One is, what do we need to do to make the property whole or like it what it was before, and then sort of the fine for the behavior?
Yeah, so the way that the tree code is written, it's a little bit different than the other code sections. It gives the arborist, the city arborist and the director a little bit of leeway to come up with fines. So the way the code is written is any incident is a fine up to $1,000. So what was done in the past, me and at the time the assistant arborist, we had discussed it and we talked it over with our director at the time, and a decision was made that the fine schedule for a non-specimen tree would be $25 per inch removed. We basically came up with the value of a replacement tree and backed off of that value, is how we came up with that. And that was probably more than 5 years ago, so it hasn't been updated since. We do have a different fine schedule. If it's a specimen, we do go to that maximum $1,000. And in addition to that, the code also allows recompense payments to be made to the tree bank. And that payment is based on not being able to plant all of the required inches back on a property. And that value was, in the code, there's a way to determine that value. So we give people the option. They can either use the method in the code, or they can use the method that we came up with, which is $1,200 for a 4-inch caliper tree. Work backwards, that's $300 per inch. The way we came up with that is we got multiple quotes, which is what the code suggests, from different landscape contractors for different types of trees, and we kind of massaged out an average based on that and came up with that value. So if they want to get multiple quotes for the entire project from different landscape contractors, they can, or they can just use the $300 per inch that we use. But that is for recompense. So that is not a fine. That is a value related to not being able to plant trees back on site. The money goes to the city to be able to plant trees in other locations that you can't fit on your site.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one more. I'm just trying to.
No, it's a little complicated.
It's
so
a little complicated. I'm trying to, in my mind, get an inventory of the damage and trying to relate that, assuming a full recompense. How much is the damage worth?
Right.
I just don't. I'm sure I could put some numbers to it. And
So I don't think that can happen until there's a report by an ISA.
Exactly. So we don't have that
we're kind of shooting in the
information.
dark until they give the
Exactly.
information.
Yeah, so we don't have that information until the report is generated.
okay.
And because the extent was so large, meaning there were so many trees involved, that's why we asked for the report instead of having the city go out and measure every stump and, measure every tree and try to identify everything. Once we get that report, then we take that and we typically will have a site visit and say, okay, this looks right. This is where we're going from here. I agree this tree can be saved. This one, I don't agree with it. And then we go forward from there. But that value can't be determined until we have that report.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm sorry, if I understand this, that we're really looking for some kind of a report to find out exactly what the extent of the damage is. That's the first thing.
Yes, sir.
And then the second thing is, I'm trying to get this in my head. The second thing is that we're looking to what sort of action comes off of that needs to be done in order to bring it back to where it was before, or bring it up to code.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so we need to have those two things, and the first one has to be the report in
Yes.
order to, okay, and then we can do then there's the next thing that has to be done is
Right.
actually bringing it back to code.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, I think I got it.
The initial letter that went out on September 15th described all of those items that they needed to bring by a certain date, and that's why we ended up here. Yeah.
I think we're, for now, done with staff, and I guess at this point have the property owner, operator come and speak what he wants to say.
Thank you.
And then when you come up to the mic, please say your name and address.
My name is Mike Panjwani.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you're more than welcome to say or express what you need to about the situation.
Sure. I bought this property last year on April. And when I bought this thing exactly like that, lost a lot of bushes and everything. The trees is very high. So, and I cannot see my sign over there, the gas sign. So I called my landscaping guy. I'm like, we need to clean this place. So I called my company, and we didn't cut any trees. We just trim it out, clean the place up, so people can see this gas price, and they can see the building. Before it's so high over there, you cannot see the building. There's a gas station right behind the bushes over there. So that's all I did it over there. And after that, I called my guys. I'm like, we just need to clean this place out. It looks so bad right now. The previous owners, he never touched the building, never cut the grass for almost 2-3 years. So it looks so bad right now. So that's all I did, And I don't mean to cut any trees or anything and whatever the trees is missing, probably is previous owner. When he sold me this thing, I bought exactly the properties that, And he can explain to you what he did it.
Good afternoon.
And just state your name for the
My name is Fadi Malan. I work for Mr. Michael.
Okay.
I do the landscaping service.
Okay.
So when we get to the property after he purchased, I do the landscaping service. So I noticed over there that there is a lot of stuff already were cut and trimmed. Even though they ask me, they say the entrance, there is liability issue for the trucks because by the side of the property there is a U-Haul company. So they enter in and out the property on all sides. So that was my main concern, is just trimming the entrance so when they pull in and out, they can see, because we had an incident a couple of months ago where other property accident and they sued the owner. And whatever touching the building, and I took pictures before and after, trimming 2 feet for insurance and paint and building damage. But none of the trees that they removed that I did, these were previously, because even when I got to the property to check it, I noticed that there is the crepe maples on the side and the mulch, they were already there. So my job is to maintain and keep the property maintained. But whatever is missing trees or something was cut, I didn't cut it. But I'm here too, so to see how can we help whatever needs to be planted, because even when he called me and he mentioned to me, so just let me know what type of trees, the size, the dimension and the location for it, so we can plant it properly. Because I've been working with cities for more than 20 years, so we have a plan, we go and we plant it, they come, they inspect it, pass. If there's some corrections we need to be done, we do it, but we do it properly as the plan is. So no one has the plan to know what type of trees, where to plant it, so I can order it and plant it and just make it ready so the inspector can come, check it and pass it.
So do you understand the city arborist instruction about hiring a ISA certified arborist to create a report?
Yes.
And so do you have that report from the
No,
ISA?
I don't. I'm not certified to give this report. That's what I asked Mr. Michael if.
We couldn't find anybody over there to.
Well,
we
we
don't have
can-
no plans. We don't have no site plans, because when I bought it, before they did we don't how many trees they did. Who built this place, So.
Well, before we leave, we can give you the website where you can look up ISA certified arborist so that you can choose one. There's many of them in the area, and I think that's the first thing that has to happen, instead of trying to come up with a plan that's not approved and it's not following what the city arborist and the code requires. So, any other comments or? So I think it's like a 2-step process. We need for you all to do what's been asked, and then you can work with the arborist to once you get the report, and he can look at it and you guys can discuss it, and then at that time figure out what's the best plan to replant and whatever needs to happen. to be able to make the best of your property and to be safe, but at the same time meet the requirements of the city. So I think that was something that should have been done before anything was done, was to come and consult the city and say, what can I do? We're having problems with sight distance or whatever, and get permission, but here nor there. But, so I think the next step is for you all to find a ISA-approved arborist, get the report, show them what the arborist has instructed you to do, and I'm sure they'll be able to provide that information. So, any other questions or comments?
Well, I would assume then if they get an arborist, that arborist is going to provide that report to our code folks for review.
Right, to the city arborist, yeah.
Okay, and then from that, what do you see as the next step?
I think that after that, and we can ask the arborist to come back up, but that they would have a recommendation of what needs, not, or a requirement, it's not a recommendation, based on what has happened, if there's any trees that are salvageable, or you have to start from beginning, and then the owner and the arborist can work together with a plan, and then come back, and try to resolve it as was requested from the notice of violation. So is that something that you guys are amenable to, that you're gonna go, I mean, we can give you the information for the website to find,
Or
the
tell me, like,
appropriate
which
persons.
Sorry, but, I mean, you can tell me, like, if it's what is missing right now, we can go and order this thing and we can finish
Well,
it.
you don't want to order anything until you get a report.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to have the report, and you need to meet with the arborist, and then come up with a plan, and he's going to tell you what would be required, and then try to work through your sight distance issues and all that. I mean, obviously, I can kind of see when you see the property from the street view, there's a lot of vegetation, and I can see where you would want to have a better view of your property and the business, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of what the ordinances say as well, so, yeah.
So the first step, we will get the information, we'll reach to the harbors, we'll meet with them, and then they will tell us, will instruct us, like, this tree, we can keep it or remove it, or, based on the measurement, plant more trees. So we coordinate with the city code enforcement, so this way, under the city supervision, so whatever they approve, we do, and then they will tell us, plant 5 trees, 6 trees.
Correct,
These
yeah.
are the dimensions.
And if Mr. Shostak can come back up just to confirm, I don't want to put words in your mouth, since you're the expert, but.
Yes, so Chairman and Board, when I get that report, we can have a meeting, and we will determine what can be saved based upon your arborist's opinion and my opinion based on the science, and what needs to be removed. And then we will move forward to make your property code compliant. In doing that, there may be a reason why you might have to hire a landscape architect to put the design together. Our code requires that a commercial property have a landscape architect to do a design. So at some point when we determine what the code requirements are, we may need to get a landscape architect involved to make sure we are fully code compliant. We have a plan that a professional can stamp, that the city can review and verify meets all codes. So we may have additional steps in here, but the first step really is getting that report from the ISA certified arborist and then evaluating that report.
What about the original plan for the property? Each property, when they build it, there's plan for everything. Can
Yeah,
we
but
use that?
no, you cannot use that because we are technically beyond that point and our codes have changed since that was built.
Okay, yes.
So since we had a violation, we need to make sure you come up to current code.
Okay.
We have to hire the architect for this thing?
We have to start
But
with
whatever
an
the missing, we
ISA
can just, whatever the plans is missing, we can just plan for this thing, like, if I have a report like, okay, this is.
This really isn't the place for negotiation.
Yeah, no, yeah, so,
So again, based on from what I'm hearing from the board as well as the violation notice that you received, There's a list of bullet points in there that need to be followed to move forward. And one of those bullet points was to hire an ISA certified arborist to write a report. Once we see that report, then we can have a conversation.
Okay, now moving forward, can you supervise us, so any move we make, decision, reach out to you, make sure we're heading in the right direction, or we should reach out to the city?
I am the city
Perfect.
contact that you will be working with.
Perfect, that's
Yes.
all. We'll
Right.
But
Yeah.
if I understand it, and just to clarify, because I think I understand what your question is that he will work with you, but he cannot consult with you. What you need to have is an arborist to come up with this plan to say, this is what it is. That's when he comes in and they start working on trying to get you up to code. But he can't consult with you and say, you really need to put a tree
Oh,
here,
no, no.
until after they get the
Yeah,
report.
of course, of course.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think even further, Mr. Shostak was stating that, once you come up with the number of trees that may need to be replaced and all that, and what might be able to be saved, then that you would have to hire a landscape architect to actually do the plans to do the replanting. So there's 2 steps to it.
Okay, I understand.
Can I ask just one more question? Do we have a timeline on when this report might be?
So that's up for us to discuss, I think, yeah. So I was thinking, I know it's hard to find people, maybe 60 days might be enough, at least to get the report back, and then have a plan in place. Maybe you won't have to implement it yet, but do you think that's enough, sufficient time for them to?
Companies, you work with them?
So my only concern with that is that if we go 60 days out, we're beyond planting season, which means nothing will be planted until September.
Okay, so 30 days possibly?
It's, planting season typically ends the first week in March.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to be considerate of the owner and trying to get the applicant, to get the report and to get the landscape plan and to get it reviewed and to get it approved. It's the end of January, so that's 5 weeks left.
Right, no, and I understand that, and I'm willing to work with whatever timeline you guys come up with. I'm just giving you
Okay.
the information. If that is the case, then we just need to understand that the planting will happen after the summer.
Or maybe we can shoot for, trying to squeeze it in the next 5 weeks, and if it's just not possible, then we just defer the planting to the fall season. Do you do a bond for that, or?
We could, once we have a plan, we could actually collect a bond, a completion bond based off the value of the landscaping until the plants are put in the ground.
Okay, yeah, I would recommend that if it ends up having to be deferred to the fall planting.
Right, okay.
Is there any way we can get a recommendation, arborist, from your company you dealt, because my only concern, even with the trees, with the shortage, everybody will call you back next week, we're busy, behind schedule, so I want to make sure I stay. This way we'll
We don't even know what the board's going to decide yet, so I don't think any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I will say, not related to this conversation, the city does have a list of arborists that we give out. It is not a recommendation. It is just a list of arborists, consulting arborists that we know work in the area. And if at any point that is something you would like, we can give you that.
okay, yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we as the board, as a matter of fact and conclusion of law, find the defendant guilty of the violation of CE, wait, no, it's not yet. I don't have that. What is,
There's one, oh, here. you
There
go.
it is, okay.
okay, I'm sorry. My screen's gone dark.
I think it's right here.
It's 3.2.1.
Oh, okay.
Is that the only vote on this one? Is that right?
We've got, there are actually 2 case numbers.
Code section.
The code.
On the code, 3.2.1.
Yeah.
Okay, so find him guilty in violation of the code 3.2.1. 2.1 in this case.
Okay, I second that. Okay, we have a motion, any discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote? Aye.
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 Okay, and it was unanimous, yes. Yes, sorry. So I think the next step is what we need to have the applicant or the property owner do, business, the violator, so.
Yeah, so the next step would be essentially, I don't think I'm on.
Yeah,
The next step would essentially be your, I don't want to say punishment, but your decision as to what they need to do.
right. Okay. So, oh, I can't make the motion. Can I make the motion?
You can't.
Okay. Having found the defendant guilty of violating 3.2.1, that's easy. 3.2.1, I make a motion that the board take the following actions in this case. We issue a cease and desist order to the defendant in this matter, and if the defendant does not provide to the city by February 15th, the certified ISA required report on the damage to the property of the trees, that a fine of $200 be imposed until the property comes into compliance for that first step. So basically, we need you to come back to us or to the city arborist with a report from a ISA approved arborist with the report first.
So it's like 20 days we have it, 25
Right,
days?
yeah. And we'll,
And I'm sorry if I couldn't find it in 25 days, and they said they're all busy right now to give you a report. So can I have some more time to?
well, we're gonna try,
Madam Chairperson, do we have a second on your motion?
the second part of this,
No, do we have a second for your motion?
oh, I'm sorry.
I second the motion.
Okay, I have a first, a motion and a second, and can we have a vote? Yeah, you can make a friendly amendment or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, because I'm trying to work this out, and I understand that time is critical here. And I understand how hard it is to find people to show and do things, and I think that this is going to require some effort on everybody's part. I agree with you that on the fine and the timing on it, but I would like to put something in there to say that that if they haven't completed that by that time, that they present to the staff why it hasn't happened. And the best thing that you can do is communicate to this thing. The worst thing you can do is think, okay, I'm working on it. They'll understand if I don't. You need to let them know on a daily, not daily, but every week that where you are on it. Say, I'm working on this, that sort of thing. And I agree with the fine, so I'm trying to figure out how to get that in the motion so that there's some understanding of the time crunch that this gentleman's under.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm supportive, we'll take a vote, but I'm certainly supportive of the February 15th date. I'm wondering, from a discussion standpoint, if we can package not only the initial arborist component, but secondly, the landscaping plan, because I think those are the two steps, and in my mind, it'd be sort of setting a date for one and then really working to put a date for the other in place, knowing that the planting may not be able to be completed by March or the close of the season, but knowing those are the two steps that I had heard in the testimony that were identified as one, getting the arborist report to kind of assess the state of the affairs in terms of damage, and then the other one, based on the negotiation between the parties, the actual landscaping plan that would be executed at the time that it can be from so that the trees stay.
Okay, so,
So can we make two motions on this, or do we need to, because I think there needs to be a motion for the plan, for it to
Right.
to get in place, and then there needs to be, once there is a plan, that, I'm thinking that there possibly should be another date set.
Yeah, you can either package it as one motion if you want to do separate motions to separate it out. So currently, the motion is that they have a report by the certified arborist by February 15th.
right,
And if they do not have that report, a $200 fine would be imposed.
Yeah, so
That's the current motion as it stands.
so maybe we can amend it to have the report by the 15th and to have the landscape plan by a landscape architect completed. It's really tough. I just,
Could we say at least have a landscape architect retained by the 15th as well?
right.
So it may take a little time to do the actual plan, but at least have someone in place who's going to start working on it.
Okay. I like that idea.
Okay, so is that an amendment to your motion?
Yes.
And then do you second the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me ask about the fine. It's a one-time only fine, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, obviously, we might have to have the city arborist come back up, but I think there may be other fines that are associated with the removing of the trees and recompense. So this is just our fine to try to motivate them to get things done.
How about if we have the first fine for the plan, and for not having a executed plan in place because I just,
Yeah. Maybe.
if there's not an executed plan in place in 60 days, that there's a $1,000 fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and obviously, by then you've passed the planting time, then you would have to provide a bond. And basically, that's guaranteeing that you would plant it by a certain date in the fall planting time. And then that would be determined by the city arborist, what that amount, the bond would be. So,
Okay, so we either need to vote on amendment to the motion,
or just
or if you want to withdraw your motion and,
withdraw it. So
okay.
I make a motion to withdraw my motion.
Do you withdraw your second? Okay.
Okay, now we can start over again.
And then my question is, because it's the $1,000, and we've already got 200, that takes, does that, do we need to back the $1,000 off to 800 so that it falls in, because?
Well, there are two, if I'm correct, there are two citations.
Two
Is that correct?
citations, so it would be
we
one
could-
for each.
Right, we could do the 200 for one citation and then the 1,000 for the
Okay.
second citation.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so let me see if we can figure this, restate the motion. So making a motion that the property owner, operator would provide an certified arborist report with the damage and what was required by the city arborist in the citation or in the letter to you by February 15th. And if that's not completed, a $200 fine. And then the next part of the same motion would be to have a landscape architect retained and a landscape plan created by
60 days.
60
But I said
days,
60 days because it's
yeah, from,
the time that they get the arborist report.
yeah, so 60 days from February 15th, so that would be April 15th. And then included with that would be a guarantee of a bond, because obviously it's past the planting season as determined by the city arborist for planting in the fall season.
And then, did you want to impose a fine if that
Oh,
was not
yes,
done?
and if that's not provided by April 15th, there would be a $1,000 fine. So, okay?
A second.
So we have a motion and a second, and we'll have a vote.
Any discussion?
Oh, discussion?
Yeah, can I just clarify real
Sure.
quick? So when we say the arborist will come out and give their plan, then we also want them to, by February 15th, to have to have retained a landscape architect, correct? And then at that point, we have the 60 days for them to complete the actual plan.
Right.
And present that. Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood.
Okay.
And just for me to clarify, this is all a staff function, or does the board, are you asking that they come back to you once the plan is in place?
No.
No, I mean, I think staff can
It's all a
take care
staff
of
function. I
completing.
mean, we can update you.
Yeah,
or,
you can
know, but-
update us, yes, and
I
then,
don't see any need to.
yeah.
No, it's going to make it go a lot faster.
Okay,
You know, let's just hope they don't have to come back before the board.
let's hope.
Okay. Okay, we've had a motion, a second, and discussion, so
All in
any
favor?
other further discussion, or we're up for a vote? Okay? Can we have a vote?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Can I make one comment? Do you understand what's happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if you understand how it all transpired, and you understand where we're coming from on it.
I wish from the beginning, the conversation from September, I would solve it, but.
I understand.
Yeah, I didn't know that all this, I do it with the city, this is my job, for
And-
20 years.
It's a learning process.
Yeah, but I'll make sure, from
Yeah.
today, communicate and make sure everything is done.
So, and I think,
Well,
if-
I have that feeling from you, so I trust that you'll make that happen. So,
yeah, and I think if you can just meet those milestones, then there won't be a fine, but, so I think a little motivation there, so.
Well, and I wanted to say too, I saw as we looked at the pictures, it was clear what you were trying to do, what you were trying to accomplish. But I think that what you have to understand is that what you're being asked to do is outside of the scope of what you are capable of doing. So you're going to have to hire those other professionals, and then you will probably assist in the maintenance going forward. But it's not something that's on you. So it's on the owner to address. And I think you have the opportunity to do something really pretty, do something really beautiful, add the trees, come into compliance, and bring the property up to code in a way that you will still have the visibility that you need. So it's a really good opportunity for you to improve the whole look of the place as well. And I think that is ultimately the goal. It's the goal of the city. The arborist is not to impose fines. It's really just to make sure that everything looks nice and that we have plenty of trees, and we're maintaining things the way they need to be maintained. So I wish you guys
Let
good
me-
luck. It's going to
let
be
me-
pretty, I'm sure.
Let me support what you just said and say also that we take very seriously our trees and our bushes and shrubs around here. And those of us have been on the other side of this at home as well. I can assure you of that.
Landscaping is my life. I'm outdoor. What I love and I do, so I love them. They're my best friend.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, so do we have any further business for the board today? Any from staff or, okay, great. Well, with that, I'd like to hear a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.